Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is currently 31 degrees, and that is the high today. Temperature is going to be around, steadily dropping, going to be around 25 at 2 o'clock. Um, about 50% chance of precipitation over the course of the morning. Sunrise is at 7:22, sunset is at 4:09. And so we are in a study of the book of Judges, and we're looking at Gideon. And Gideon is called by the angel of the Lord. Um, and under this persecution of the Midianites, the Lord is going to use Gideon to show Israel the power that he has, right? And so Gideon is like concerned at this call because he's his as it says here in verse 15, chapter 6, verse 15, my clan is the weakest of Manasseh, and I am the least of my father's house, right? And God always uses the unsuspecting or um, those that are considered weak or adverse situations, right? Adverse situations to show that the power in his of his might, right? And so um, he's but the Lord says to him in verse 16, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." And so he questions it, right? He questions it, and he says, "Well, if I found favor in you, in your eyes, just wait here. I'm gonna bring you something." Okay, so he goes back and he prepares a young goat, some unleavened cakes, um, and he he pours up he puts it in a basket, and the broth he had put in the pot, and he brought them under the terebinth tree. So he brings them to the angel of the Lord. And the angel of God said to him, take the meat and unleavened cakes and put it under the rock and pour out the broth over them. And he did so. So he gets it all soaking wet, puts it on the rock, gets it all soaking wet. Then the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of his staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes, and fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. All right. So now, if that doesn't show you that this is the Lord, I don't know what will. Okay, so a fire sprang up. So he put the meat, the unleavened cakes on the rock, doused them. Okay, got them soaking wet, and then boom, consumed them with fire. That all-consuming fire. All right. Um, the this sweet smelling savor, right? That the Lord gets when our sin is burnt on the altar. It's that separation from sin in that sacrifice, right? And so, him doing this, and it would, one would think, right? And I try to put myself in Gideon's position because I'd be fearful too, right? The task that he's given me to be the one strike down all of Midian as one man. Okay, I'm the from the weakest clan in Manasseh and the weakest of my father's house, and you expect me to do this? Like, I really need some proof. I really need some evidence. And here he does it, right? And here he does it. And after the fire sprang up, um, and sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and unleavened cakes, and the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. Boom. There you go. There's your proof. Okay. Um, so is that where he separated from this sin of fear? Right. That is the question. And um, it's hard to you know cast a judgment on Gideon in this, at least for me, because how many times does God show up? God, give me a word. God, prove it's His word, and I still question it. It's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. And so after he vanished, then Gideon perceived that he was he was the angel of the Lord. And Gideon said, "Alas, O Lord, for now I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace be to you. Do not fear, you shall not die." Now, back in Genesis and Exodus, there's this warning, like even Moses couldn't see the Lord face to face, right? If anybody who sees the Lord face to face will surely die. All right, but he says, "Do not fear, you shall not die." So how is this so? Well, this is so because God can have mercy on whom He has mercy on, right? He chooses whom He will have mercy on. And so, verse 24, then Gideon built an altar to the Lord and called it the Lord of Peace. The Lord of Peace. So, this the opposite, right? The opposite of fear, right? The fruit of the Spirit, or the attribute that goes combats fear, is peace, right? If you have fear, you're absent peace. And where does that peace come from? The peace comes from faith in God. Faith comes from hearing His word. See, this whole time, the angel said to him, and God said to him, and the angel of the Lord said to him, right? And he's saying and saying, saying, but he's not. He doesn't have peace because he doesn't have faith in what he's hearing. And so that night, the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull and the second bull, 7 years old, pull down the altar of Baal that your father has built, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it." And so God tells him, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to cut down the altars to Baal. You're going to cut down the altars to the Asherah, and you're going to sacrifice to me. You're going to build an altar to me, and you're going to sacrifice, not just sacrifice, you're going to use the wood of the Asherah to burn this altar for me, or to burn this sacrifice for me." So then what's Gideon do? So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his family and the men of the town to do it by day, he did it by night. But at least he did it. So because he was too afraid, so because he is absent peace in what the Lord had said, okay, he was too afraid. He goes in and does this, cuts down the Asherah, cuts down the altar to Baal, burns up the the sacrifice from the wood of the Asherah, and he does it at night. And then, of course, when morning comes, this is verse 28. Behold, the altar of Baal was broken down, and the Asherah beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. And they said to one another, "Who has done this?" After they had searched and inquired, they said, "Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing." All right. So, we need to be bold to be different. Be bold to be different. So everybody, right? Everybody, when we get into this like mob mentality, and the mob is tricked, right? We have to be bold to be different. To be bold to be obedient to Christ, right? It's contrary to the crowd. Okay, being a Christian is one, we're called to be bold. We're called to be stout in our belief, in our beliefs, but we're called to be different. We're called to be a peculiar people, right? A peculiar people, something that they don't get, they don't understand, right? And that's what we have to do. And sometimes, God gives us a word, or the scriptures, they go against what the majority is doing, and we've got to be bold to be doing it. All right. And so then the men said to Joash, "Bring your son here." But Joash said to all who stood against him, "Will you contend for Baal, or will you save him? Whoever contends for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is God, let him contend for himself, because his altar has been broken down. So, in this exchange, in this exchange, um, the townspeople are saying, "Bring out your son." Joash is saying, "Well, if Baal is real, let him contend for himself." All these idols, all these things that we battle for, right? Let them contend for themselves if they're real. That's what he's saying. Like they don't need to. Um, our God has nothing to prove, though we ask him to prove it. And the idols that we cast our God or aside for, or dismiss his word for, they don't have to prove anything to us. Why is that? It doesn't make sense, right? And so, where is Gideon in this? Is he hiding? What there's no record of Gideon saying anything here. It's his father who speaks up. Okay, so what? Where's my boldness? Where's my boldness? Sometimes it's hiding and waiting for somebody else to speak for me. Like Gideon, and knowing that the Lord has called me or chose me to, or His Word has told me to do something or act a certain way, and I hide. I hide when the people of the town or the idols look too good. I hide when it's time to address it, or I hide when it's time to be bold.